Good morning. So wonderful that we can gather here today at Radiant Church here and on this glorious Sunday morning. If this is your first time here, I want to extend a very warm welcome. We're very excited to have you as part of this community here today. Now, have you ever been in a situation where you just felt that your life was being sucked out of you? Now, I believe that we have all probably faced this at some point in our life. And if we haven't, I'm sure that it may happen to you in the future. It may be a person who just sucks the life right out of the room whenever you are around them. It could be a job you have to go to every day that is just sucking the life right out of you. It may be a situation that you are in, a financial situation, a business arrangement you are currently dealing with. Whatever the case may be, all you know is that when you are there, when you have to deal with that situation or with that person, you are going to come away feeling worse than you did going in. When I was younger, I was living at home, and I was offered a job at the U.S. Postal Service. At the time, I was living at home with my parents. I was going to college for music and working as a security guard on the weekends. My dad saw this job as a great opportunity for me. He saw it as a steady job for me and a way to get a firm financial footing in life. Now, I could have turned down the job and just continued on with my life, but that wasn't going to be easy because my dad was very adamant that I needed to take this job. The problem was that this is not what I wanted to do with my life. But when you are in your early 20s, living at home with your parents, with a father who insists you have to take this job, I felt as if I didn't have a choice. So I took the job, and I regretted it from the minute I did. This job just sucked the life out of me, but I was making very good money for a person my age and my education level at the time. I had a retirement plan, I had health benefits, I had everything that anybody would want out of a job. Anyone I talked to expressed that I had a very good job. When I would complain, all anyone would say was that I should be happy to have the job that I had and the financial security that it gave me. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, there were some positive things that came out of having that job. But for the most part, it simply was draining the life out of me. All the possibilities and opportunities that I once saw before me, I now saw as impossible. I felt I was trapped and tied down to this job and that it was preventing me from fulfilling anything I ever wanted to do. All I ever thought about while I was doing this job was leaving this job because of the way it made me feel. As time went on, I settled in, but I was always praying, hoping, and looking for a way out. And you may be in a similar situation today, a situation that you can't just simply walk away from. Yes, you could walk away from whatever the situation is, but it would have various serious ramifications on your life. And you just aren't willing to put yourself in that situation. It's tough. Life is hard. Because that's where I found myself every day that I worked at the post office. It's almost as if we cling to the enemy that we know instead of walking into the unknown. The obvious thing for us to do is to get away from our life suckers. And if we are able, that is what we should do. But we also need to understand how to protect ourselves from any life suckers we may face now or in the future, because it may not always be possible to walk away from our life suckers. And even if we are there, if we're able to walk away, there may be another one coming along. So we have to be able to protect ourselves. So today we're starting a new series. The title is Protection from Life Suckers. Now, a life sucker is anything or anyone in your life that leaves you feeling drained and unmotivated. A life sucker can be another person or even a certain group of people. It could be a job, or it could be a place where you feel obligated to go. A life sucker is anything or anyone that drains your energy, that drains your passion, that drains your joy, that takes away your light. When you are around a person or you are doing something that is not good for you, your physical body will be affected. A life sucker will cause you to experience anger, bitterness, hostility, and resentment. We all experience a life sucker at some point in our lives. There may be times when we have several life suckers in our life at the same time. With this series, we're going to be looking at how to protect ourselves from life suckers so that we are able to live full and productive lives. The title of today's message is Transform Your Mind. And we're going to be looking at Romans, Paul's letter to the Romans. We're going to be looking at chapter 12, and we're going to be looking at verses 1 and 2. A very short passage, but Paul says a lot in this short passage. And a lot of it can be applied to protecting ourselves from the life suckers around us. Now, Romans is in the New Testament. It's between the book of Acts and Corinthians. And if you'd like to follow along as I read, turn in your Bible to Romans chapter 12. Or you can open a device of your choice to Romans chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. And the scripture will also be projected as well. Romans 12, 1 through 2. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. This is the word of the Lord. Now, throughout the first 11 chapters of Romans, Paul is talking about God's mercy. Now, Paul is going to teach us how to live in God's mercy through the rest of his letter to the Romans. The first thing that Paul tells us to do in view of God's mercy, meaning because of God's mercy, now that we know about God's mercy, the first thing we need to do is that we are to offer our bodies as living sacrifices to God. Paul tells us that we are to offer ourselves as holy and pleasing sacrifices to God. To be holy means to be set apart for special use. So, if we are to be holy and pleasing sacrifices to God, what Paul is telling us is that we are to set our lives apart in service to God. Now, the Romans, who Paul was writing to at the time, they would have associated and they would have understood the word sacrifice as an animal sacrifice. Animals' lives were offered as a sacrifice where an animal's life was taken as an offering to God. But Paul tells us that we are to offer ourselves as a living sacrifice to God. And what that means is that as a living sacrifice, that we are to die to self and to live for God every single day. So what does all that mean? Well, to die to self means to live your life in service to God instead of service to yourself. It means that we are to look to God as how He would have us live our lives instead of simply living every day just to please ourselves or our own wants and our own desires. Instead, what Paul is saying is that we are to seek God every day and ask Him how He would have us serve Him every day. To be a living sacrifice means that whatever we do throughout the day, whether it is doing our job, dealing with a difficult person, dealing with a difficult boss, or dealing with a difficult situation, we are to approach it as if we are strictly working for and serving God. That it is no longer the company, it is no longer the person, it is no longer the boss that we are serving, but it is God that we are serving through all our daily interactions. And as a living sacrifice, we are to give our entire being, all our heart, all our love, all our talent, and all our energy, and all of our strength to serve God. As a living sacrifice to God, He asks us to serve Him in thousands of small ways every single day, dying to self and living for Him in each small decision that we make every minute, every day, our whole lives through. Paul tells us that when we offer ourselves as a living sacrifice to God, that it is our spiritual act of worship. We worship God when we choose His way over our own way or our own understanding. So how would you live life? How would you live your life differently if you really lived with the understanding that every decision you make, every word you say, is a way to worship God? Now, there is a fundamental difference in serving God than serving self and serving the life suckers in our lives. See, God may allow us to go through some tough times, deal with difficult people, and experience some difficulties along the way, because He is using these things to build us up and strengthen us. But when we see ourselves as serving God, it makes things go smoother, and it keeps the life suckers from being effective. When we work for and serve God, He will also be working on our lives as well, increasing our energy, increasing our passion and our joy, instead of allowing the life suckers to steal these things from us. Paul then tells us that we are not to conform any longer to the pattern of the world. Now, to conform is to behave according to the usual standards of behavior that are expected by a group or by a society. The world is pulling us and influencing us every day. So it is natural that we would be shaped by the standards and practices of the world. But Paul is telling us that we are to no longer allow this to happen to us. That instead that we are to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Now, to be transformed means to change completely the appearance or character of something or someone so that that thing or that person is improved. So what Paul is telling us here is that we need to renew our mind from the world's way of thinking, the world's way of feeling and doing, and be transformed to God's way of thinking, feeling, and doing instead. Renewing our minds means pushing the conforming influences away and replacing them with spiritual input from God. Now, Paul is telling us that we are to be transformed by God. And we're to be transformed, and that God is ready and willing to transform us, because we can, but we can resist this transformation. And we can do it in various ways. So, if we know that something could happen, well, why would we resist it? Well, We may be fearful of the unfamiliar. See, we may not be convinced we need transformation. Or we may not realize that transformation is available to us. Many of us are comfortable with the way things are in our lives. It may not be ideal and it may not even be what we want, but we are comfortable because it is familiar to us. We may like the idea of transformation, but we are resistant to the unfamiliarity that it brings. But if we are ever going to see and experience real change in our lives, we have to allow God to transform us. Now, on the other hand, there are some of us who believe that we are just fine the way we are, that we are happy with the way life is, even if there are, a few situations or some people that are difficult to deal with. We don't believe that we need to be transformed because we're fine, just the way we are. And they don't see transformation as making much of a difference in their lives. And yet, there are some who even realize that transformation, some who don't even realize that transformation is available. You may be trotting along in life, wishing that things could be different in your life, but just don't see how. You have no idea that transformation is available to you. You may go to church, you may believe in God and have a religious understanding of faith, but have no idea that transformation is available. Or you may be far from God today, knowing that something is missing in your life, knowing that you want more out of life, but you don't know how that would be possible. You have no idea of the transforming power of God if you were to let him into your life. I tell you, let God into your life today and you will experience a true transformation. Paul tells us that when we are transformed, that we will then be able to we'll be able to test and approve what God's will is. It is only when we allow our minds to be lined up with God that we will know and that we will understand his will. And once we understand God's will, we will have a better understanding of how to deal with all the life suckers that come our way. It's important to understand that transformation is a process and that it is not a single event. You may experience a huge change in your life right away. Maybe, maybe not. But either way, you are in a process. It is a process that you will be in for the rest of your life. Now, I was at the post office for 25 years. Every day, longing for the day when I could leave there permanently. But once I realized that I was working for and serving God in everything that I was doing, it kept the life-sucking power of that place at bay. Yes, I still wanted to leave as soon as I could, but as long as I had to be there, I was going to make the most of the situation that God had me in. God was training me for other things, but he needed me to go through that experience first. You may be in the middle of a life-sucking situation. You may be dealing with life-sucking people in your life. You may long for the day that you can get away from the people or the situation. But if you realize that God is using this experience in your life for a greater purpose, you will be protected from the life suckers. We are all going to deal with life suckers because they are all around us. There's always going to be a situation or a job or something that's going to suck the life out of us or have the potential to suck the life out of us. But we don't have to allow them to suck the life out of us. We have protection from them. And Paul is telling us that we need to start with transforming our minds. So what life suckers are you facing in your life today? How are you dealing with them? When we allow God to come into our lives and transform our minds, we will have protection from the life suckers that we face. They may not be completely eliminated from our lives, but God will protect us from their life-sucking power. When we allow God to transform our minds, we may still have to deal with life suckers, but they will not have any power over our lives. God will help us to deal with them and to restore the life in us that they seek to drain from us. So this week, take time each day to be with God. Now, I'm not talking about hours here. Well, I mean, you should spend your day with God. But I'm talking about beginning your day and ending your day with God. Take time every day. Tell them about the life suckers in your life that you face every day, that you are going to face that day, and ask Him to help you deal with them. And as you do, your mind will begin the process of transformation. You will see these life suckers in a different light. And you will see and experience God's protection in your life from them. You will experience true protection from life suckers when you seek God and allow Him to transform your mind. The process will begin. Amen. Well, thank you for joining us and spending a part of your Sunday with us. We're here every Sunday at the Forks Township Community Center with our live service at 10 a.m. Our weekly message from Radiant Church, as always, is broadcast right here on Facebook Live at 10:30. You can also follow and connect with us on Facebook at Radiant Church PA and also on our website, radiantchurchpa.org. You can also support the ministry of Radiant Church through our website by just clicking the donate button. And throughout this week, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn His face towards you and give you peace. Go in peace and have a great day.